The Kithara had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and for good reason, standing 8 feet tall on 6 razor-sharp legs. With mandibles that could slice through titanium and eyes that saw across 17 different spectrums, they were evolution's perfect killing machine. Their exoskeleton could deflect plasma bolts, their reflexes were faster than thought, and their intelligence rivaled the greatest supercomputers. Every species in known space feared them. The crystalline Vorthak, masters of energy manipulation, would flee at the mere mention of a Kithara ship. The gas-dwelling Nephilim, who could phase through solid matter, would abandon entire star systems rather than face a single Kithara warrior. Even the ancient precursors, whose technology bordered on godlike, had been hunted to extinction by these apex predators. Zekthar was considered exceptional even among his kind. His kill count exceeded 10,000 sentient beings across 47 different species. His ship, the Bone Harvester, was decorated with trophies from every corner of the galaxy. Warrior castes from a dozen worlds had built legends around his name, and mothers would whisper tales of his hunts to keep their children in line. He had been tracking his latest prey for 6 months now. A small cargo vessel had somehow evaded his initial strike in the Kepler Nebula, managing to slip away when his weapons disabled only their main engines, instead of destroying them outright. This rarely happened, and it had become a matter of professional pride. No prey escaped Zekthar. The cargo ship had limped into the abandoned mining system of Zirion 7, desperately seeking refuge among the dead planets and asteroid fields. Zekthar smiled, a terrifying expression that revealed rows of needle-sharp teeth. Trapped prey often tried to hide in such places. It only delayed the inevitable and made the hunt more enjoyable. His sensors detected the ship powered down on the third planet, hidden in what appeared to be an old mining facility. Zekthar's excitement grew. A cornered prey was often the most dangerous, and therefore the most satisfying to kill. He had fought desperate Vorthak who turned their own bodies into crystal bombs, and Nephilim who had mastered forbidden phasing techniques in their final moments. Each had provided entertainment before their inevitable demise. As his ship descended through the thin atmosphere of Zirion 7, Zekthar reviewed the intelligence data on his prey. The cargo vessel belonged to something called a human, a new species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. His database contained limited information about them. Bipedal mammals, average height around 6 feet, no natural weapons or armor, no psychic abilities, no remarkable physical attributes. They appeared to be one of the weakest species he had ever encountered. This disappointed him somewhat. After 6 months of pursuit, he had hoped for a more challenging opponent. But a hunt was a hunt, and his reputation demanded completion. Perhaps he could make it more interesting by allowing the human to run for a while before finishing it. The mining facility was old and decrepit, its metal structures rusted and partially collapsed. Perfect terrain for a hunt. Zekthar landed his ship a kilometer away and checked his weapons. His plasma rifle was fully charged, his monomolecular blades were sharp, and his armor systems were operating at peak efficiency. He had hunted in worse conditions and come away victorious. As he approached the facility, his enhanced hearing picked up sounds from within one of the larger buildings. Metallic banging, the whir of machinery, and what sounded like singing. Zekthar paused, confused. His prey was singing while being hunted by the galaxy's most feared predator. He moved closer, using his natural stealth abilities to approach undetected. Through a gap in the building's wall, he could see his target. The human was indeed small by galactic standards, wearing stained coveralls and working on what appeared to be the cargo ship's engine. Tools were scattered everywhere, and sparks flew as the human wielded some kind of fusion cutter. "Come on, you piece of junk," the human muttered, completely unaware of the death that lurked just meters away. "I know you've got one more jump in you. Sarah's counting on me to get these medical supplies to Kepler Station." Zekthar studied his prey with growing puzzlement. The human showed no signs of fear or desperation despite being stranded on a dead world with a damaged ship. Instead, it worked with calm efficiency, occasionally humming what seemed to be some sort of primitive musical composition. This was not the behavior he expected from cornered prey. Perhaps the human was simply too stupid to understand its situation. Many primitive species lacked the intelligence to properly assess threats. Zekthar decided to announce himself and watch the fear bloom in his prey's eyes before the kill. He stepped through the gap in the wall, his massive form casting a shadow across the workspace. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous building like thunder. Most species would have frozen in terror at this point, but the human simply looked up from its work with mild curiosity. "Well, hello there," the human said, setting down its tools and wiping greasy hands on a rag. "Didn't hear you come in. Name's Jack Morrison, and you caught me in the middle of some engine repairs. Don't suppose you're here to help?" Zekthar stood motionless for several seconds, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. In 3,000 years of recorded Kithara history, no prey had ever greeted their hunter with casual friendliness. His database contained no protocols for this situation. "I am Zekthar of the Bone Harvester," he said finally, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that had driven lesser species to madness. "I am here to kill you." Jack nodded thoughtfully, as if this was a perfectly reasonable statement. "Okay, but could you maybe wait about an hour? I'm almost done fixing my hyperdrive, and I've got medicine that needs to reach some sick kids on Kepler Station. After that, if you still want to kill me, we can work something out." The apex predator of the galaxy found himself at a complete loss for words. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. Prey did not negotiate with predators. Prey did not suggest scheduling appointments for their own deaths. Prey certainly did not continue working on engine repairs while calmly discussing the matter. "You do not understand," Zekthar said, raising his plasma rifle. "I have killed 10,000 sentient beings. I have ended entire bloodlines. Species whisper my name in terror across the galaxy." "That's nice," Jack replied, returning to his work with the fusion cutter. "Sounds like you've got quite the reputation." "Me, I'm just a mechanic trying to keep old ships running. Different career paths, I guess." The sparks from Jack's tool illuminated his face, revealing not the slightest trace of fear. If anything, he looked mildly annoyed at the interruption. Zekthar had seen this expression before, but only on the faces of other apex predators when their hunting was disturbed. Something was very wrong here. Zekthar's tactical analysis systems began running combat scenarios, but every simulation produced the same result. The human should already be dead from terror alone. His mere presence had once caused an entire Nephilim colony to phase shift into a star, rather than face him. Yet this small, weak mammal continued working as if a living nightmare was not standing 3 meters away with enough firepower to level a city block. "Human," Zekthar said, his voice dropping to the subsonic frequencies that could stop most hearts through fear alone. "You will face me." Jack sighed and finally put down his tools. He turned to face the towering alien predator, and Zekthar prepared to see the terror that was his due. Instead, Jack looked him up and down, with the clinical assessment of someone evaluating a piece of machinery. "You know what? You're actually pretty impressive," Jack said. "That exoskeleton looks like it could take a direct hit from a plasma cannon. And those mandibles. I bet the hydraulic system behind them could generate incredible force. What kind of maintenance do you need to keep something like that running?" For the first time in his long and violent life, Zekthar was utterly speechless. Zekthar stared at the human for a long moment, his sophisticated brain struggling to categorize this unprecedented behavior. In his entire existence, no being had ever asked him about maintenance schedules. Prey begged for mercy. Prey offered tribute. Prey screamed and fled and died in ways that satisfied his predatory instincts. Prey did not inquire about hydraulic systems. "You wish to know about my maintenance?" Zekthar asked slowly. "Well, yeah," Jack said, warming to the topic. "I mean, look at you. You're basically a living piece of advanced machinery. Those legs alone must have dozens of moving parts. And that exoskeleton probably has microfractures that need regular repair. Plus, I'm guessing you've got some kind of internal environmental system to handle different atmospheric conditions." The Kithara warrior found himself nodding before he caught himself. "This is irrelevant. I am here to kill me. Right." Jack waved a dismissive hand. "But like I said, I've got sick kids counting on me. And honestly, you look like you could use some maintenance yourself. When's the last time you had a proper tune-up?" Zekthar's mandibles clicked involuntarily. The human had somehow identified his greatest weakness with nothing more than a casual visual inspection. His last maintenance cycle had been delayed by 3 months due to an extended hunt in the Outer Rim. Several of his secondary systems had been operating below optimal parameters, and he had been experiencing intermittent pain in his third left leg joint. "How did you?" he began, then stopped himself. He was Zekthar the Terrible, Scourge of the Seven Systems, ender of bloodlines. He did not discuss maintenance issues with his prey. 20 years working on everything from asteroid miners to battle cruisers, Jack explained, pulling out a small scanner and pointing it in Zekthar's direction. You develop an eye for these things. Mind if I take some readings? I'm getting some interesting data about your biomechanical integration. Stop that immediately. Zekthar snarled, but made no move to prevent the scan. Something about the human's matter-of-fact approach had thrown off his usual predatory rhythms. Fascinating, Jack murmured, studying the scanner's display. You've got metal fatigue stress fractures in your lower carapace, and your left mandible actuator is running about 15% below optimal. That's probably causing you some discomfort during feeding, right? It was. The pain had been growing worse over the past few weeks, but Kithara did not show weakness, even to their own maintenance technicians. Yet this small human had diagnosed his condition in seconds. Your scanner cannot possibly. Oh, this old thing. Jack held up the device. Military surplus from the Terran Engineering Corps. We use these to diagnose everything from fusion reactors to quantum computers. Biological machinery isn't that different, really. Same principles of stress, wear, and component failure. Zekthar's confusion deepened. Military? The database had listed humans as a recently spacefaring species with primitive technology, but the scanner in the human's hands was clearly more advanced than anything in his knowledge base. You are a warrior? He asked. Jack corrected. Spent 10 years in the Corps fixing everything that broke. Which was pretty much everything. Turns out when you tell a bunch of humans that something can't be done, they take it as a personal challenge. I've repaired ships that were held together by determination and duct tape, engines that shouldn't have worked according to physics, and weapons that had been improved by soldiers with more enthusiasm than engineering knowledge. The human returned to his work, apparently considering the conversation finished. Zekthar watched in fascination as Jack's hands moved with practiced efficiency across the engine components. The fusion cutter danced in his grip like an extension of his own body, making repairs that would have challenged seasoned technicians. Your species appears more capable than my intelligence suggested, Zekthar admitted. Intelligence gathering is tricky, Jack agreed without looking up. Especially when you're dealing with humans. We have this habit of exceeding expectations, usually in ways that violate several safety protocols and at least 2 laws of physics. This is impossible. My data indicates your data is probably based on our first contact protocols, Jack interrupted. Standard procedure when meeting a new species is to downplay our capabilities until we know their intentions. Basic survival strategy: show them cargo haulers and civilian ships, keep the military tech under wraps until we know if they're friendly or not. Zekthar's tactical mind began reassessing everything he thought he knew about humans. If they were deliberately concealing their true capabilities, what else had his intelligence missed? And why was this particular human being so forthcoming with information? Why do you tell me this? He asked. Jack paused in his work and looked up with a grin. Because you're not going to live long enough to share it with anyone. The casual way the human delivered this death threat sent a chill through Zekthar's exoskeleton. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Uncertainty. Explain, he demanded, raising his weapon. Well, Jack said, setting down his tools and standing slowly. You're clearly some kind of apex predator, the way you move, the way you've been studying me for weaknesses. That speech about killing thousands of beings. You're a hunter, and a very good one. Zekthar nodded, pleased that his reputation was intact. The problem is, Jack continued, you made 3 critical mistakes. Mistakes? The concept was alien to Zekthar. Apex predators did not make mistakes. First you assumed I was alone. Jack pressed a button on his wrist communicator. Sarah? You getting all this? A female voice crackled through the device. Every word, Jack. Target analysis complete. Recommend immediate extraction. Zekthar's head snapped up as he suddenly detected multiple heat signatures surrounding the building. His sensors, which had shown only empty wasteland minutes before, now revealed at least a dozen concealed positions. How had they gotten so close without triggering his detection systems? Second mistake, Jack said calmly. You assumed this was a cargo ship. Through the building's windows, Zekthar could see his surroundings more clearly. What he had taken for mining equipment was actually camouflaged military hardware. The cargo ship he had been tracking was broadcasting false identification signals. His prey had led him into a carefully prepared trap. "And your third mistake?" Zekthar asked, his mind racing through tactical options. Jack's smile widened, and for the first time since entering the building, Zekthar saw something in the human's eyes that he recognized. The cold calculation of an apex predator. "You assumed," Jack said softly, "that you were the only one hunting." The revelation hit Zekthar like a plasma bolt to the thorax. He was not the hunter. He was the hunted. His combat systems immediately went to maximum alert, analyzing threat vectors and escape routes. But as his enhanced senses swept the area, the tactical situation became clear. He was completely surrounded by beings whose stealth capabilities exceeded his detection systems. In 3,000 years of Kithara dominance, no species had ever managed such a feat. "Who are you?" he demanded, his weapon tracking between potential targets. "Terran Special Operations," Jack replied, no longer bothering with his folksy mechanic persona. "We've been tracking you for 8 months, ever since you made the mistake of attacking a human medical transport in the Kepler Nebula. That was my prey. That transport was carrying vaccine supplies to a colony world suffering from a plague outbreak," Jack continued, his voice hardening. 200,000 children died because you destroyed those supplies for sport." The weight of Jack's words settled over Zekthar like a heavy shroud. He had not considered the cargo's purpose, only the entertainment value of the hunt. Such considerations were beneath an apex predator. Yet something in the human's tone suggested that this distinction mattered greatly to their species. "You are warriors," Zekthar said, finally understanding. "We're mechanics, doctors, engineers, teachers, parents," Jack corrected. "But when something threatens our children, we become whatever we need to be." The building's lights suddenly blazed to life, revealing that what Zekthar had taken for structural damage was actually sophisticated camouflage. Hidden weapon emplacements emerged from walls and ceiling, their targeting systems already locked onto him. Through the windows, he could see armored figures rising from concealed positions, their equipment unlike anything in his database. "Impressive," Zekthar admitted. "But I have faced ambushes before. Your weapons cannot penetrate my exoskeleton. Want to bet?" Jack asked cheerfully, pulling out what appeared to be a standard plasma cutter. But as Zekthar's sensors analyzed the device, he realized it was anything but standard. The energy readings were off the scale, and the focusing array was constructed from materials his database couldn't identify. "Human engineering," Jack explained, noting Zekthar's confusion. "We took your plasma rifle design and improved it. Turns out, when you tell a human engineer that something is impossible to modify, they take it personally." The weapon in Jack's hands hummed with barely contained energy. Zekthar's tactical systems calculated the damage potential and arrived at a disturbing conclusion. The modified plasma cutter could cut through his exoskeleton like tissue paper. "You cannot have developed such technology so quickly," Zekthar protested. "Your species has only had spaceflight for 50 years, Jack finished. "Amazing what humans can accomplish when properly motivated. Especially when that motivation involves protecting our children from galaxy-spanning serial killers." Through his communicator, Zekthar could hear tactical chatter from the surrounding soldiers. Their coordination was flawless, their technology superior, and their discipline absolute. These were not the primitive mammals his intelligence had described. These were apex predators of a different kind. "What do you want?" Zekthar asked. "Information," came a new voice from the shadows. Another human stepped into the light, this one wearing officer's insignia. "You're going to tell us about every Kithara hunting fleet, every staging area, every target you've been assigned." "I will tell you nothing," Zekthar snarled. "Actually, you will," the officer said calmly. "See, we've been studying your species for months. We know about your pain receptors, your psychological profiles, your social hierarchies. We know exactly how to motivate a Kithara warrior." She gestured, and several soldiers wheeled in a large device that Zekthar didn't recognize. As they activated it, his exoskeleton began to vibrate at a specific frequency that sent waves of agony through his nervous system. But more than that, the vibrations seemed to bypass his natural armor entirely, targeting the sensitive biomechanical interfaces between his organic and mechanical components. Resonance frequency manipulation, Jack explained casually. We figured out that your exoskeleton amplifies certain vibrations instead of dampening them. Took our acoustic engineers about 3 weeks to map your vulnerabilities. Zekthar had endured torture before, but this was different. The humans had turned his greatest strength into a weakness with surgical precision. Every plate of armor that protected him from external threats now transmitted excruciating pain directly into his nervous system. "Turn it off," he gasped. "In a moment," the officer said. "But first, let me explain something about human nature. We're not particularly strong, fast, or tough compared to most galactic species. What we are is adaptable. When something tries to kill us, we study it, understand it, and develop countermeasures." She nodded, and the device powered down, giving Zekthar a moment to recover. "You've been hunting sentient beings for sport," she continued. "That makes you a problem that needs solving. But you're also a valuable source of intelligence about other Kithara operations, so here's your choice. Cooperate with us, and you'll be confined to a prison world where you can't harm anyone. Refuse, and we'll demonstrate just how creative human engineers can be when properly motivated." Zekthar's mind raced through his options. Fighting was impossible against these numbers and this technology. Escape was blocked by soldiers whose stealth capabilities exceeded his detection systems, and the alternative to cooperation was clearly something far worse than death. "If I provide this information," he said slowly, "what assurance do I have that you will honor your agreement?" "The word of a human," Jack said simply. Any other species would have laughed at such a statement. But looking into the human's eyes, Zekthar saw something that gave him pause. There was no deception there, no hidden agenda, just the steady gaze of a being who said what they meant and meant what they said. "Your species confuses me," Zekthar admitted. "We confuse ourselves sometimes," Jack replied with a slight smile. "But we're consistent about a few things. We protect our children, we keep our promises, and we really, really don't like bullies." The officer stepped forward. "What's it going to be, Zekthar? Prison? Or do we need to get creative?" Zekthar looked around at the assembled humans. They had hunted him across half the galaxy, anticipated his every move, and trapped him with technology he hadn't even known existed. They had done all of this not for glory or territory, but to protect children they had never met on worlds they had never seen. He thought of the medical transport in the Kepler Nebula, of cargo he had destroyed without a second thought, of the children who had died because of his actions. For the first time in his long life, Zekthar felt something his species had no word for. "Shame. I will cooperate," he said quietly. "Good choice," the officer said. "Jack, pack up your gear. We've got intel to process and children to protect." As the soldiers began securing their equipment, Jack approached Zekthar one last time. "For what it's worth," Jack said, "you really do need that maintenance work done on your actuators. Prison's going to be tough enough without dealing with chronic pain." Despite everything, Zekthar found himself appreciating the human's matter-of-fact concern for his well-being. "You are strange creatures," he said. "Yeah," Jack agreed cheerfully. "But we're consistent. Remember that, when you're telling your fellow Kithara about what happened here. Humans don't look for trouble. But when trouble comes looking for our children, we become something that even apex predators learn to fear." As they led him away, Zekthar realized that the galaxy had just acquired a new apex predator, and unlike the Kithara, who killed for sport, these humans killed only to protect. The thought should have terrified him, but instead, it filled him with something he had never experienced before. Respect. The galaxy would never be the same.